Welcome everyone watching at home and in the club. My name is Glenn Prince and this is the competitive league final of the Cincinnati Curling Club. Looks like the teams are about to get underway. My name is Glenn Prince and I'll be here giving you a little play-by-play in the final of tonight's competitive league. The chat is also live on YouTube, so if you happen to be watching, tell us where you're at so we can send you a shout out. So it looks like Team Connolly is throwing first. So to get us underway will be the Team Connolly lead, Mike Hartwatt. The skip Pat has called for a centerline guard.
Get it all the way here.
The beauty of curling is you should be able to hear some of the action on the ice. It'll be a little slow probably in the first end, so you see Paul and Ramsey kind of sweeping it to the center line. Excellent first shot by Mark. Going to be a little tricky in the first end. You never quite know what the ice is going to do. Our ice tends to play a little slower in the first end, so you have to give it a little more to get it to the same place you might say, even in the next end. Next up to throw is the lead for Team Newcomb, Lauren McNary. And with that ice, I think they're playing the come around. Again, we're kind of out in the middle of the 12 foot, and at first end it can be a little slow. So I don't think it's quite curling like Team Newcomb anticipated. You see it really kind of just hung out there. Right? Not all bad, right? Could use it as a corner guard if they need to later in the end. So Mike's been asked to come around that center guard they just threw on his first rock. Mike's told me he wants everyone to know that he's just happy to be ambulatory. That's it in his advanced stage. Pat thinks the line is a little tight. It's really diving at that center line guard. Looks like the weight was probably pretty close. They're going to chip it off. So it's going to kind of open up the middle now. So Chuck has asked for Lauren to come around that kind of staggered situation you see on the left of your screen. Well, on the right angle, but on the left-hand side of that right camera. So we'll figure out the logistics somewhere, maybe by the fourth end. I'll figure out exactly. They've called T, so I think a little heavy maybe. Yeah, it's really starting to bend there again on them. Let's see if they, by the corner guard with some room. Settling in, where will it stop? Looks like it's going to settle. Settles right between the back 8, back 12. Right. Would have been optimal to keep that above the T line so they can't do what Pat's going to do right now and freeze to it. The Team Connolly second, Ibs Ramsey Fulbright. This is just Ramsey's second year of curling. I actually used to curl with the team you see there. Ramsey's my replacement, doing a much better job than I ever could have. So, a fellow Arkansas fan. I'm from Arkansas, and he went to the University of Arkansas, so shout out to the U of A. Looks like it might be just a smidge light. They're dragging it pretty far, actually. Yeah, so just to the top 12. So red is still the shot stone. And now that freeze path is kind of blocked by where that Yellowstone ended up. It would be very difficult between that yellow and that staggered guard situation. So Team Newcomb is looking in pretty good shape. And Team Newcomb second is Kevin Taylor. When I asked Kevin how long he'd been curling, he said he curled for a couple years after college and then picked it up 5 or 6 years ago. I said it was pre-disco. He did not seem to indicate that that's when he started curling. Lots of luck for Kevin. This is really curling. It looks light as well. So they're probably all over, I think, that corner guard. Yeah, good sweep, though. Good attempt to get it by. Lots of shrapnel out front now, right? Just lots of guards in the way, so not a lot of great options right now. Right, the hole on the right-hand side on the right-hand angle, as you see it, not very big. Right, Pat's contemplating what his next shot will be. So this will be Ramsey's second rock. So kind of an angled tap is what Pat's called, and you can see it's sort of necessitated by where all those guards are. Right, there's not a great draw path. You could draw wide out on the out-turn side, but that's a pretty difficult shot in the first end. So going to try to play the corner tap here, or the slash tap, or the angle tap. There's a lot of words for the same thing in curling.
Okay, down.
Pat's called on the sweep. Might be over curling on them, I think, and maybe, again, a tad light. It's tough in that first end, especially sometimes you have to wait. This looks pretty good, actually. Oh, I think I had that maybe. I think they have got shot stone, so excellent shot. I think the tap is one of the hardest shots in curling, and especially when you're trying to tap it at an angle, even more difficult. You know, the beautiful thing about curling and the worst thing about curling is a centimeter can make you look like a fool. So a shot that, you know, is actually very close to being made can sometimes look like a total disaster, even though in reality you're very close. So we're going to try to clean up the situation here a little bit. Chuck has called on the sweep. Brian and Lauren are heads down. They're also married. They're a married couple on the ice. And they're still married, and they've been playing together for several years, so they've defied the notion of the divorce league, as we call it sometimes. So, not bad. Cleared out that one rock out of the way. All right.
Do it again.
Yeah, yellow still shoots. So now what he's going to do is he's going to try to basically do the same thing again and possibly sit 2. Although with the way that angle is, it's probably just going to be for 1. I'm not sure that yellow is going to roll in far enough to sit second shot. And the Team Connolly third is Paul Robinson. Silence is not always a good thing in curling. You can hear now Pat saying never. Yeah, sometimes the silence is, I'm not quite sure what to do with this, and maybe there's nothing I can do with it. Yeah, that's really, if you notice, Lawrence did this as well. On that in-turn side, they seem to be hanging out just a little bit, so may need to adjust the ice a little bit to make sure that they can get kind of more pinpoint accuracy on their shots or do something with it. Again, that just didn't move very far, right? So you see it's actually advanced the red into the house, and that's kind of a lonely yellow. All right, even if you peeled, yeah, playing board, try to get rid of that yellow. And really the object here is to just get rid of the rock, and that task is left to his third, Brian Shimko. Brian has a very pretty delivery, I would say. It's very aesthetically pleasing, if you will. So Kevin's being called on to curl the rock. That's why you see he's in the stance he's in, trying to make it curl again on that in-turn side, right? Just doesn't seem to be coming up. Oh, and through the hole, that's tough to do, right? So maybe could have chipped off that red. Obviously the goal was to hit the yellow, but sometimes you could have bing bang boom, I call it, right? You can sort of come off the red onto that yellow. Would have been a really good shot actually if they'd able to chip that red, right, onto that yellow. It probably would have got rid of that top red, but it would have put that other red in a very good position. Unfortunately, going through the hole as he did gives Pat's team an opportunity to capitalize here on Paul's second rock. Paul's a really good guy, one of my favorite people at the club, one of the nicest people you'll meet, and an excellent curler to boot. Again, look, see, I think he through the hole as well? Yeah, same thing, right through the hole again. I mean, the hole is there for sure, but for 2 rocks to go through the same hole, almost in the same way, right? is a bit unique. So, but they're going to take all that information. I mean, one of the things that's difficult about curling is ice reading, and the ice is going to change during the game. So, especially when in that first inning, it can be very tricky to figure out what's going on. Brian being called on for the hit again. Right? Could sit 3 after this shot. If you're new to curling, the way we score the game is it's the number of your stones that are closest to the center or the bullseye before you get to an opposing team's colored stone, right? So he's not going to stick around here. That's actually fine. It does probably open up the come around though for Pat. But even if Pat makes the come around, they'll be potentially running in their own color since Team Newcomb is playing the red stone. So like I was saying, that sounds a little confusing. So right now red sits 2. If yellow were to get 1, sort of in that bullseye position, right, yellow would sit 1. Right, so even though red has more in the house, yellow would score 1 in that situation. And because they don't have the hammer or the last rock, we consider that a steal. So anytime you don't have the hammer and you score, we call that a steal. It's also an odd occurrence in curling that since if you're the team with the hammer and you only score 1, that's actually kind of that's what we consider a victory if you're the team without the hammer, right? Because in theory, if you had the last rock, you can always score 1. So it's actually better to score nothing sometimes than 1. We call it a blank end. You don't see that a ton in club curling. I've had 2 blank ends my entire time curling. This is finishing my 3rd year, and one of them was on accident, right? So, not as good as the professionals that do it, but this is the lead of this team, Pat Connolly. Pat's an excellent curler. This is his 9th year curling. Pat and his partner Audra won the mixed doubles league. Very competitive here at the Cincinnati Curling Club on Monday, so Pat has had an excellent year, making both a competitive mixed doubles final and winning that, and now he's in the final tonight as well. They came in as the 9th seed, so they've really worked their way through some tough teams in the bracket, which we'll talk about here in a minute. Looks pretty good. Needs to curl just a bit, maybe. Mike's in the way. I can't really tell. I'm just kidding, Mike. Mike wearing the stylish shorts. Mike is the man with many pairs of pants and many pairs of shorts. Fashion icon of our club. You can see, right, it's a little bit buried, but on this ice, there should be no problem. For the skip of this team, Chuck Newcomb, to kind of get to that rock and push it back out of the house. A little hard to tell from this angle. He may be able to get just to the inside. If he could get just to the inside, he could roll just a little bit toward that center line, right, and be more under that red, and that would be very difficult to get rid of, and it might force Pat to run the opposition color in, and that could be potentially for a whole bunch of points. So, important shot coming up here for Chuck. Chuck's been curling for a few years, we'll say. Here and there. A bit. Yeah, it's not, again, I think they were a little concerned. They jumped it a little on the inside. You see it's really moving there at the end, but it did still on that intern side, not moving quite as much as we anticipated. It's going to crash out. And actually, yeah, I don't think that back red stayed in. Red still sits too, but again, because the hit and stick is not made, that gives Pat the same shot. And it's kind of a general kind of rule of thumb in curling. You don't want to give the opposition team the same shot twice, because he was pretty close the first time, and so he's going to use that knowledge, I'm sure, to see if he can really sink it in there and put him and his team in a good position to steal this end. So this is the last rock of Team Connolly this end. Bring in, he's yelling bring it in, which means he just wants you to move the broom in. Remember we talked about on that intern side it's not curling as much, so I think that's a really smart decision there by Pat. Right, we're just on the edge of the 8-foot, edge of 12 now. Not edge of 8, edge of 12 really. Well, edge of the ridge between the 8 and the 12 foot, right? So he should, right, if he learned from that first one, he adjusted his ice just a little bit. Remember, didn't quite get under that red guard, so that's why he's moved the broom in, right, his aiming point in just a little bit to see if that will affect that. It's really moving in now. Paul seems to think he's got a good one. It should really curl. They've been snapping in here. If the weight is right, it should snap in at the end. Again, kind of hanging out there right there at that 4-foot line. We're kind of on the side of that second circle. Very similar to the first one. Kind of lost its enthusiasm there. The handle kind of died on it. What that means is the rock stops turning, right? It doesn't quite turn as much as it was at the beginning, so we call that sometimes a lazy handle. Couldn't quite really tell from that angle if it was super lazy, but that just means basically that whatever turn you've put on the handle, it just kind of stops turning at the same rate. And sometimes that can make the rock do crazy things. It can even spin the other way sometimes, so. Last rock of this end, though. Team Newcomb has the hammer. This would be a hit for 3, so this would be an excellent start for Team Newcomb. Anytime you can score multiple points, and any end is good, but 3 is an excellent score, especially at the start of the game. So, last rock of the first end. If he's calling Kevin, he must think that he needs to make it curl. Kevin's trying to move it over. He's got to get it over. Got to get it over. He's got to make sure he at least gets over the edge. He wants to be on notice to stick around for the 3. It looks pretty good from here. It's going to stick around, I think. Yeah, excellent shot by Chuck. So Team Newcomb off to a really strong start. I couldn't quite tell. They moved the rocks. I think it might have been, it's either for 3 or for 4, but either way you look at it, that was a strong start for Team Newcomb in the first end. If you're new to curling, since Team Newcomb had the hammer and they scored, the hammer will flip, and that just means that they threw last time, and that now they'll throw first. So you saw Lauren throw second the last time, and now Lauren will start the end. So we're going to start the second end. We don't have a lot of time between ends like you might see on TSN or ESPN or Curling Night in America, so Lauren's right back down there. And the reason why you do that in club curling especially is you want to keep the game moving because we have pretty narrow time limits, even though we're going to play all 8 ends tonight because it's a championship final. So he's called the corner. He's called the center line guard, just like Pat called. It's a very typical first rock strategy for the lead to throw. Leads rocks kind of aren't as celebrated as other rocks. As a person who likes to play a lot of lead, they're very important, right? This looks very heavy from this angle. Looks through the house at this point. It's going to have to lose its enthusiasm pretty quickly to stay in. Oh, it's coming down. Again, we're still early in the thing. Pat's going to give the best try he can. It might be just... Ooh, I think it may have just hung on. Hard to tell from that angle. It'd be worth doing. Yeah, so red did score 3. That's what I thought. Yeah, I thought that redstone was out, but the way it got kicked at the end, it made me think so. So just confirmed that's Team Newcomb and red has scored 3, so they're up 3-0. But remember, Team Conley has the hammer now, so an opportunity for them to get at least 2 right back if things go the way they want them to. Right. A common mistake, especially in club curling, is to think, I'm down 3, I need to get 3. It's a long game. You've got 7 more ends to play, right? So what you really need to worry about is just getting on the board, right? Slowly working your back. Take your 2 here, hold them to 1, and start making that same pattern repeat. Looks like that's also heavy. I might have nudged that. I don't know if I nudged it. If it wasn't out, it might be a little closer to out now. He grazed it oh so slightly on the way by. Didn't see if Chuck may have called. I think he's called the center line guard again. You could come into the 4-foot if you wanted to, or where the bullseye is, right? Kind of draw in and make a play on it. That makes a little more sense if the back rock is then if you've got what we call a biter. That means it's just hanging on by a thread. This also, when they're walking behind the rock and they're not doing anything, that usually means they're like, nope, don't want to touch this because they think it's going to be heavy of their intended weight call or where they want the rock to start. That called a lot. So I don't know if Lauren got a little inside or it's just curling a ton already early. Yep, so Pat says here are the 2 options. This is always a good thing, I think, for skips to do. Pat says you got 2 options. Freeze is great, although the come around is also really good. In this case, I think either option, especially this early in the end, we're only on the lead's second rock. I think either is good. Just depends on how you like to play the game. There are a million ways and there are a million strategies to play this game. You'll see the same sorts of strategies deployed, but after those first few rocks, then there's literally a million options some games. There's either a million or sometimes there's just one, so it's a very interesting game. Depending on wherever else rocks go, kind of dictates your strategy. This is going to go just a little deep. All right, so remember Pat called that to kind of corner freeze or on the corner of that red rock in the 12-foot or to come around it. Had he come around it, though, that means to get directly behind that red rock. He would want to keep that above that kind of the middle of the target line. We call that the T line. He wanted to be behind that red rock, but not too far back. If it gets too far back, it's of no use to you, or if it's of less use to you. So strategically, you want to keep that higher in the house, or as high in the house as you possibly can. Kevin's in the hack. Looks like they're playing the hit with that kind of weight. Sometimes I'm talking too much and not watching the call of the skip. You can read where the broom is if you're around curling a little bit. Yeah, it's once it gets to the center line, it should move a bit. Okay, Lauren's trying to make it curl. It's on the rock for sure. It's gonna peel it out. I think it's not gonna stick around. Yeah, that's fine, right? I always say, right, what's objective one? Get rid of the rock, right? So now that does give Pat's team, right, the opportunity to make that same shot. Right now he's called to come around. He doesn't want, yeah, he said, has he buried, right? He doesn't want that corner freezing where he wants to be directly behind that red and above the tee line, right? Anything back means that they can freeze and basically make that yellow rock they are about to throw useless because their red rock will outcount it. So Ramsey delivering the stone here in the second end for Team Conley. Remember, Team Conley does have the hammer.
Way out wide.
So Pat is indicating that he's way out wide. I mean, it's curling quite a bit. I don't know if it was quite as wide. I don't think it's going to come back either, but I don't think it maybe was heinously wide. I mean, look, I mean, it's got some curl at it at the end. Definitely a little wide, right? But I think, you know,
Control, Kev. Yep.
lots of curl. The other thing it's hard to see from this stream too is, you know, the amount of you know, turn you put on the handle can sometimes really affect how much it curls. So if you have kind of a lighter handle, less rotation, sometimes it'll really curl at the end. More rotation, the rock may stay a little straighter on you. And there are if you watch the professionals, they can really sometimes manipulate how many turns of the rock they have just to do that. So you can kind of lazy the handle like I talked about earlier. Sometimes on some ice skates to curl more. This has got a curl to catch the yellow and make it. It might be by the yellow. Oh, it just didn't curl enough. That's a big break for Team Conley. Yeah, you could see Lauren again there on that side of the rock. The theory behind the one sweeper is to see that one sweeper, you know, sweeping at an angle to make that curl toward the object rock. So in that case, that yellow rock, and it just, Lauren couldn't quite sweep it enough. But that's not Lauren's fault. That's just probably maybe a little too much ice or a little wide of the broom means it's just not going to come back as much. Ramsey in the hack for a second rock. So if he was a little wide this time, he'll probably have fixed that, right? He'll have learned from that first rock. And so will Pat. He'll watch it come down. Ramsey kind of following his rock down. A lot of us do that, right? A lot of us have a lot of energy. This looks like it has quite a bit of enthusiasm.
All the way back here.
You can see it trying to curl here at the end. Moving in. Again, behind the tee line, although in that case, right, even if you were to bury around that yellow, if you get them too close together in this case, because that yellow is touching the 8 foot, too close together makes the double or the run back easier. Now that's still a difficult shot in club curling, but it does, the distance between those rocks, the harder that run back becomes. So Chucky is calling for Brian to play the hit. I said before, I like to watch Brian's throws. Very aesthetically pleasing. All around good guy, that Brian Shimko. Yep. Yeah, you can hear Chuck enthusiastically calling on the sweep. Good shot. Oh, did he make the double? Did he make the double? Not quite. Great try, though. Really great try. You know, it's... curling is very easy to learn, difficult to master, much like chess, I think, in that way. And the thing that, you know, you see, you know, the Cooies and the Gushus of the world, you know, the Mark Kennedy and the Mark Nichols of the world making these ridiculous shots. To get that close on a double in club curling is very impressive. And I mean, just missed it. Now Pat's playing the come around again. Pat does sit one still. And you can see those red are really helping him, right? That one red is basically lined up on his back gill. You could run it back if you had to, but lots of shrapnel to draw around. This looks very wide to me right now. It's going to have to come back a mile. Yeah, we're not hearing a lot of road calls out of this team. Or if we are, I'm not picking him up with a microphone. And that's one piece of information your front end wants to communicate, right? In that case, I think they were trying to sweep it out because they didn't want to give him anything he could freeze to, which is a very smart strategy, right? Let's say that yellow comes up short, right? That just gives red something to either freeze to or come off of. And so, very smart heads-up play by Pat to just have him sweep it through at that point because it's not going to do them any good back there. Well, when I see the same shot over and over again, you'll see this in curling, right? I think last night we tried the same gar. It was very fast ice. Last night we tried to make the same gar, I think 6 times. I think the 6th time we got somewhat close, right? So sometimes you'll see ends like this where it's just a matter of who can make that shot that everyone's trying first. And that usually is a team that's going to score at least a point, right? Because they've managed to figure out the ice in the lane. And that's quite difficult. You know, if everyone's missing the same shot, it means something's getting all the teams, right? Again, this is probably still a little wide. It's come down a whole lot. It's come down a little bit, but still either the ice is quite keen or it's just catching a little bit off, it's just catching a little surprised. I think yellow was still one, right? Which means that Red Rock is doing Team Newcomb no good. So again, you know, same shot but better, as we often say lovingly to each other, right? You know, you get the same shot twice. Remember I said earlier in the first end, it's dangerous to give the same shooter the same shot twice. They're more likely to make it that second time around. Still looks, this one is, the line is a little better coming past the hog line at least, but it's going to need to die. Pat's called on the sweep. If they're heavy, he might be trying to come down 2 and freeze, which it will bump that red back. But again, the yellow double is there. The freeze on the yellow is also there. Obviously, yellow can freeze back. But again, if your shot rock is behind, you know, the T line and you're way back in the 12 foot, you really at that point, that yellow rock is not really helping you. It's both set up a double or a freeze opportunity. So in that case, much like Pat tried on the first one to sweep that rock through, maybe we get on that a little earlier, maybe we can sweep it through. Hard to tell. I mean, it did curl quite a bit at the end. I'm not sure there would have been enough enthusiasm in that rock to get it through, but it would have been interesting to see, right, to kind of replicate that play from the first time. A little more discussion between Brian and Chuck this time. You can see Brian's calling for the come around. So I think this is the 5th or 6th attempt we've had at this shot, right? Both teams at this point will have lots of information, hopefully, about what that line's doing. As you're seeing continually, you see where Brian has his broom pointer. You can see kind of that orange sticking out. That's the aim point for the curler, right? So if you're new to curling, they're going to try to aim for that. And if you've watched to the end, if you've been paying attention to that particular side of the camera, you'll notice slowly we're inching further and further in. That means each team is figuring out that they need to change the delivery aim point, right? And they need to move it in because it's not curling, although he may have moved it just slightly back out a little bit. So we also do that, right? We set up people and then they kind of move the delivery point out. So this will be Chuck's first rock. It's the 6th attempt. My buddy Nick is adjusting what the fans in the club can see. We've got a whole bunch of new contraptions here, which is awesome. Oh, excellent. All right, a little deeper than Chuck would have wanted, but Chuck has definitely figured out the line now. That's about the 6th attempt at that shot, so you can see the broom being moved in. You can also see, right, different curlers have different spots. So where Brian had the broom a little closer to that kind of bullseye, we've seen Pat move it a little further out, which means he thinks he's going to need more ice and more time for that to curl, right? So, and that's because everyone throws the rock a little differently, right? And so it's important to take the information from the other team, but if you play with the same people over and over again, you're going to know what your team does best. And so watching the other team may be somewhat helpful, but if they deliver the rock substantially differently or they don't get as much rotation, that's going to totally change the complexion and what their rock does. So, you know, these guys have been playing together all year. They're really going to know each other's delivery. You know, they're going to know out of Pat's hand probably where that rock is going to end up weight-wise because they've played with them. And in case of Paul, they've been playing together for many, many, many years, so Paul will also have a good read on the line. Skip's first rock here in the second end. Remember, Team Connolly has the hammer, which means he will throw last. You hear Pat in the background saying it's got to curl a lot. So you saw him take more ice than Chuck did. I think he anticipated that his rock might curl more. As you're seeing as it comes into the house, it's not curling more, right? So now I think red sits one, right? They're the shot rock. They have some options here. I think that's the play I would make as well. You can see Chuck pointing to that upper part of that kind of second circle. We call that the 4-foot. So he's going to try to draw in behind that red and stop. Remember, just short of the T line, which we talked about. You don't want to be back. If he can sink this in good, it's a tough one probably for Team Connolly. So could be a very good steal opportunity for Team Newcomb to go up 4-0. So this is the last rock for Team Newcomb. Remember, they are without the hammer this end. So this is their last rock. Hey Beth, good to see Beth Pratt, club member, great person, joining the live chat. Hi Beth, hope you're doing well. Beth and her husband are both members of the club. Jason, shout out to Jason as well. You'll hear me proselytize a lot about curling if you ever meet me, and the best thing about curling are the people, my friends. There's not a single person in this place that I do not enjoy being around, and it's the best part of curling. So even though this is a competitive league and it's the final and both of these teams really want to win, the best part of this place is that, you know, win or lose, they're going to sit at a table at the end of the night and they're going to have a drink or two, non-alcoholic or alcoholic, whichever one they prefer, and we're all going to be great friends at the end, and there's something really special about that. Oh, Jason's joined the chat as well, so both the Pratts are here. All right, that's still a good shot. Red is still sitting 2. It does probably give Pat some options here. He could play the hit and roll. Off of that, he could play the hit and roll off of his yellow, probably in the back if he wanted to, and maybe enroll in for shot. He's got options, so he's weighing them. He could play a very wide draw if he really wanted to, because he just has to be full 8, just a little bit of than full 8, because you see that red rock in the back of the 8 foot is kind of fully in there. So he needs to be just better than that. By that, I think he's either playing the hit on his own in the back or a draw. Lots of discussion about this shot. Very, very important shot, right? So if Red is sitting 2 right now, if they go up 5-0 after 2 ends, that's a pretty big lead. But in club curling, no lead is insurmountable. I've been in a game where I've taken 6, given up 5, taken 5, given up 6. You just never know what's going to happen. So important shot here for Team Connolly. Last rock of the second end. Pat will probably let us know how he feels. Out of his hand. All right, it's going to hang out there a bit. You're going to have to be careful though, because it's going to, if it's out there, he's got to go. I think, yeah, you can tell that they've lost the rock. It's just there's not enough on that rock. I don't think they're going to make it. Yeah, it's just light, and you can see. Yeah, very frustrating to come up light. It's tough out there though when you're drawn that far out to draw. It's very, very difficult. So that's a steal of 2 for Team Newcomb, I believe. You'll see the scoreboard go up at the bottom there, but I believe it's a steal of 2. So after 2 ends, it's Team Newcomb 5, Team Connolly yet to be on the board. But because Team Newcomb stole 2 points, they will throw the first rock again. So they were without the hammer since they stole. You can see Chuck has tapped just in front of the rings, which means he wants a tight center line guard for their lead, Lord McNary. What's up, Jimmy? Good to see you. I hear that Pat's brother is watching. Thanks for tuning in, buddy. Jason would like to also shout out Indian Springs Berry Farm, home of the best blackberries I've ever eaten. I think I ate my weight in blackberries there. I think they open for picking in July. If I'm not right, they'll correct me probably. But I think, yeah, so excellent honey as well. So look them up on Facebook, and they'll let you know when the hour's coming. They are organically grown. Any other data Jason provides me also do. So what happened there is, unfortunately, Lauren didn't have quite enough momentum on that one. We call that a hogged rock. That line you see, that red line you see is the hog line, and unfortunately it has to make it over that line or it gets taken out of play, and she did not make it, so the center line guard, that stone gets taken out of play essentially. So that's an advantage now for Team Connolly. They need to capitalize on that because that's a mistake from Team Newcomb, and they've not made a ton of mistakes. The ice might be a little tricky already here in the third end. You're seeing this really is struggling to get over the hog line as well. It might be a 1. It might be a very high guard. Okay, as long as they get it over, this is usable. They do, right? 5 rock rule right now. Even though it's a high guard, you might see them double guard that side, which means he might have Mike throw another guard in that same line, but much closer to the house because that guard is so high. It's going to be very difficult to utilize that. You can probably get to whatever rock you could theoretically draw behind that yellow. Howdy from Boston. That's the worst Bostonian accent you'll probably ever hear, Jimmy, but that's all I got from Arkansas. Thanks for tuning in, bud. We have a fantastic sister in Beth Pratt. We love her here at the club. All right, Lauren's going to have another go here at the center line guard. Again, like I said, any curler gets the same shot twice. They're usually going to try to make it that second time. Right. Curling is full of nerds, and we really don't like it when we get the same thing twice and can't make it work. So, Lauren's also a good friend of mine. We had lunch the other day. Lovely human. Everyone here is a lovely human. But special shout out to Lauren. Well, Lauren and I are going to go to San Francisco. There's a LGBTQI plus circuit at Bonspils. Very excited to be headed there together to compete there. So if you are a queer identifying person, curling is a very inclusive place for you to be. Mike has been asked to come around that rock. So even though it's in the house, you may think, well, that's not a guard. Well, if it's that high in the house, you can utilize it as a guard, right? He's saying get it out of the way, which means this one's breaking early on them. It has no chance of getting around. Pat just wants it out of the way, meaning I want it to where it won't be in my way to make a different shot, so that whatever Ramsey might be throwing next, or even Paul, there's something can happen. Looks like with that ice, I think Chuck is again calling the central line guard, which is the smart play here. If you're up 5, you can play a more defensively minded game. Remember, they've got to come back to you. You're out in front, so, you know. Not everyone's going to play the Jennifer Jones, my favorite curler's style, who just retired, by the way. Her style of curling.
Yep.
Ah, I got a wicked good. I know what that means. That's like Bostonian for doing a good job. Thanks, I appreciate it, my friend.
Whoa, it's over curling.
Wicked smart, as my friend from Boston would say. That's an excellent shot. Perfect shot, right? In the professional ranks, right, if it touches that central line guard, you actually can't touch it. Or your rock goes away. That's a new rule this year to eliminate what we call the tick shot. People used to play the shot where they would, because back in the day, if you had that guard there, as long as it stayed in play, the opposition team can maneuver that. Well, now if it's on that central line, they can't maneuver that rock to take away that shot. The one thing I love about curling is it really is amenable to change. Let it go usually means that it doesn't have much chance of making the intended shot. And you can see that one also came up light. You can see Mike's expression there. We've seen several rocks now come up light. We saw Lauren's first come up light. I think that's Ramsey's first come up light. So either they're just not coming out of the hack maybe with quite as much momentum as they want, or it could be, even though it's only the third end, right, we're playing the home side to the away side, there might just be something about the way that's playing that means it might just not be as keen as we had in the second end, or it hasn't quite keened up. But keen is just a way of saying it hasn't sped up, right, how fast the ice is. You'll see some teams use stopwatches to determine that. They'll use that as a data point, right? So, and every club's, speeds are different. So I put up with Pat last year. We went to Boston, and their ice is just much faster than here. It doesn't make it bad or good. It's just faster. And we really struggled for the entire game because our ice is not quite as fast. And we were like barely pushing out, and, still really having our rocks go through. So I think part of the fun of curling is reading the ice, right? It's just like reading a green in golf, right? So there's an art to it, and the team that can really read the ice and adapt to it and believe what they're seeing, right? That means the ice is changing, and seeing it can really get an advantage. Ramsey has another shot here. Really good come around though on that last rock. You see those red rocks are lined up well. If we're being really picky, it's a little deep. It's in the back of the button. It's pretty good, to be honest. You want to be in the front of the button, but we're really being nitpicky, right? We're saying that. Looks pretty good here. This looks pretty good. Needs to curl just a. This looks really like a good shot from Ramsey. Get it there. Great shot from Ramsey. Perfect. Really wanted to freeze more. The only problem with that red rock, now they can tap that back. But if red freezes, right again, right when you shrink that scoring area, you've got one in the back of that button. You've got one on the button. That scoring area can start to shrink very quickly. There's not a lot of maneuver room there, so you've really got to be strategic. Both teams do about where you place these rocks. If you're Brian here throwing his first rock, you're really going to continue to put the pressure on, probably freeze to that yellow, and continue to put the pressure on and shrink that scoring area. And make, even though the back red might go, if you keep freezing and freezing and freezing, right, it really benefits the team that's in the lead. They're now playing the pick, it sounds like you said, or a tick, I'm not quite sure. Okay, that's fine. There's definitely a shot there red onto yellow. You can also play that, so Pat's going to freeze to his zone. I like that call. And again, I encourage everyone, we're only in the third end. We play an 8-end game, even though it's 5-0 right now. That really is not, that's a essential lead in curling, but it's not an insurmountable one. And as we say, the ice is slippery and the rocks move fast and slow, right? So, you got to keep in there. And I really like the attitude Team Conley is taking to this end, right? Really problem solving, finding their way through it. This looks a little wide to me. Looks like it's still out there on that, and this is that same side. You remember in the first end, this end turn side, right? You've got out into that 12 foot, and it just does not move. So maybe just a little less ice, because I think with a little less ice we're seeing more bend, more curl, right? So I think they just need to make a slight adjustment there on the amount of ice they're giving him.
Yeah, both of them, I don't care. Yeah, I gotta wait.
One of the best things about curling is he'll kind of Chuck talking, right? He just really wants to hit some stuff. Bing, bang, boom, right? Or bing, bang, bong, whichever one you prefer, right? Just get some granite moving. Yeah, Beth, we have quite a few people at the club watching. I think most of the first draw. So this is a competitive. We also had 3 games in our early draw. This is our late draw that started at 8:45. Yeah, I think everyone, at least, quite a few people are still hanging around. And we have 11 of you watching. So the Pratts and Jimmy are watching. If you're not the Pratts or Jimmy and you want to say hi, let me know. I'm one of them as well, Glenn Prince. If you see my name, that means I'm talking. Oh, it's on the guard. Is he on the guard? No, he gets past the guard. Great. Oh, just need to curl just a little bit more. And that's a break for Team Conley. You see where that yellow rock has ended up, right? It's now guarded by that high guard. It's guarded by the red. You probably, and that red that is there is a little problematic. Gonna try the same shot, right? Freeze on that top red. And that's really a setup shot, right? He needs to freeze there to give him an opportunity to score multiple points. And like I said, even though they're down 5, you know, a 2 here, you know, and you start slowly working your way back. And that's the thing that's about curling is, if you just commit to making your shots, you can work your way back into a lot of games. And so, again, that's Team Conley's got to keep that commitment. And you can see it took less ice, curling a lot more, right? Look at the movement here on this rock compared to the first rock because of that, right? He's having them sweep it hard. Okay, that's not bad. That's a very usable rock, right? It's in front of the tee line. It's lined up with the red. Yellow does sit 1, right? There are also options for Team Newcomb, but that's not a bad outcome, right? If it's heavy, right? And again, could be their mics aren't picking it up, but that's one of the things that front end needs to be yelling, right? Where's the rock? And some people use a numbering system, right? They might say there's a numbering system that goes 1 through 10, or you might say, I think it's a guard, I think it's in the house. The house is the term we use for that entire kind of bullseye, that entire ringed surface you see there. Or you might say directionally, right? It's the top 12, that's that top blue part, or the back 12, that's the back of that blue ring, right? So there's a lot of different ways, but it's really important that the front end communicate where they think it is. Now, you can adjust that. You can be wildly wrong, but I'd rather someone be wildly wrong and really be communicating with me about that information, and then we do the best we can with the information we have. And so we hear a lot of yelling going on in curling. So we're going to play guard, it looks like. Now, you may be thinking, but Glenn, yellow is sitting 1 while they play a guard. That's because giving them 1, remember, if you remember from earlier we were talking about, giving them 1 is good. The theory in curling is you should always be able to get 1 or at least have a good shot if you have the last rock, because you have the ability to throw that last stone, and that last stone would count for 1. So I like this play. If you're up 5, you give them 1, you flip the hammer, right? The hammer goes back to you, and then you start applying the pressure again. So smart heads-up move. Anyone who knows me knows I'm kind of conservative as a curler anyway. I'm happy to take my 2 and fight the next 10 because 2 is a good score to me. So, and a force is always good. Disco Chuck Newcomb here. IT is Chuck. He has been curling for quite a while. Also a lovely human. I do like Disco Chuck as a nickname. Don't know how he feels about that. You see here again, they've gone out wider again, and even with less weight, right? So the theory is, as soon as the weight comes off, the curl tends to curl more, and it did curl a smidge more. But so again, I think they've been pulled on this intern side just a little bit too. I think they thought less weight, we can move that broom back out again. Unfortunately, it just didn't move, right? So that means they've got to move that broom back in, because even with that less weight, they're not getting the curl they wanted. They wanted that, where you see that red rock land, they wanted it kind of lined up, or you see Pat just moved his broom, but they wanted it substantially further toward that center line, right? So this gives, again, like I said, heads up play. Keep up in there. Lots of options for Pat here, right? After this, yellow could be sitting 2. If they got real lucky, they could be sitting 3. But again, 2's good here, right? Get your 2, start that fight back. Hey, it's my uncle. What's up, Ernie? Ernie joins us from the, I hope, sunny at this point, Arkadelphia, Arkansas. What's up, buddy? My uncle is a sports expert. I think he knows a little bit about every sport known to humankind. He's been working in collegiate athletics since like 1912. I say that with love. He's more like my brother than my uncle. We're close in age, so love to you, brother. Good to see you. Pat's first rock here, right? Playing the hit, it looks like from here. It does get a curl. You hear Paul saying it's going to curl. Like I said, Paul and Pat have played together a very long time. Paul's going to know what that release looks like for Pat, and he's going to know what to expect. It should cut here if they took the right amount of ice. It's moving, moving. That's not bad. It might move that yellow into third, but that's okay. Yellow's still shot, so yellow still sits one. It looks like red is now second shot, but red's not out of the woods, right? They don't make a good one here, and it could be yellow gets 3 all day. So again, and and if they got really unlucky, yellow. I mean, that back double is probably pretty tough, but could play it if you wanted to. I think if I had the opportunity for 3, for sure, I'd take that over playing that double. Gonna have to get my uncle up here and have him get out on the ice sometime. Slide around a little bit. All right, this is the final stone for Team Nuke. Remember, they do not have the hammer because they stole 2 in the last end. So this is Chuck's last shot. And remember, Chuck's gonna try to come into that, to where that yellow was just thrown. Even if he kind of nuzzled in that kind of where the yellow-red is on that side, if he could just kind of nuzzle in, that wouldn't be a bad outcome either. He really just doesn't want to give more than 2. And if he gets nuzzled up to that yellow, it's gonna be, that red will be impossible to get rid of, and it's yellow 1 for sure, but a tough 2. Final stone of the third end for Team Nukem. Lauren's yelled out T-line. She thinks the weight is T-line, which would be good. That would mean 2 that yellow. She's saying back 4, which means a little heavier than that. Could be tapping yellow. Don't want to tap the red for sure. That would be not a good outcome for this shot. Needs to curl probably. Looks like. Needs to curl. Needs to curl. Needs to curl. Okay. That's pretty good. Yeah, it's really in the way. It's a tough 2. Pat may be thinking here that they need 2, right? They're down 5. Could take your 1, right? I mean, like I said, club curling, ice is slippery. You never know. 5-1 after 3, you've still got a lot of game left, right? So. Thanks, Reagan. Appreciate it. Hope you're doing well. Looks like you might be eyeing up a double here, and one can understand why he would go for this shot. I mean, you are down 5, right? He may not feel like 1 is enough to put him in a strategically valuable place in the game. There's lots of options, and I think they're rightfully talking this out. This is a very, very important shot, right? Sometimes, there's one shot and people talk about it for 5 minutes. This is one of those instances where, this is a very, very important shot to their chances probably in this game, and so I really like the thought that Paul and Pat are putting into it. They really talk to the options, right? And now Pat is going to try to make the hit. Looks like he's going to try to make the hit for me to try to make that double. Let's say he makes that double, it's going to be a great shot, and this game is going to change a bit. It looks like a tough shot from here for me, It's there, but it's tough. You're probably not going to give up a steal if you miss it, because I think it will. If you miss it the other way, I think your yellow will jam into your own rock. So you'd have to be, I think, get a bit unlucky to give up a steal. But it's the final stone, third end. Team Conley needs a big shot here. Needs a big shot. They're not doing anything. They're not moving. Gotta get past that guard. I think it's on the guard all day. It is. That's okay. One yard, but he missed it the right way. Right, he was trying to get to the inside of that red. So when you're trying to get the inside of the rock, your brain's gonna tell you to kind of throw it narrow. Because if you're wide, right, that's probably disaster. So Team Conley's on the board, right? They score 1 in the third end. The score after 3 ends is Team Newcomb. They're throwing the red rocks. They have 5. Team Conley with the yellow rocks have 1, but they're on the board, right? The fight back starts now, right? So. And sometimes, I think, they've only had the hammer for a couple of ends, but if you're not really getting some success, sometimes taking that 1 and flipping the hammer can also kind of reset the game for you. So we'll see what happens here in the fourth end. Again, since Team Conley scored, they no longer have the hammer, and so they'll throw first this end, and the Team Conley lead is Mike Harwatt. Mike's been called to throw a central line guard, methinks.
Just above the house.
They want a 3, or just above the house, as you heard Pat say, right? Yeah, they're going to have to sweep it. It's going to over curl possibly as well. You see, before the hog line, it's already over this, so they want to be. It's probably more like a corner guard, although it has ceased curling a little bit. Okay, that works. Yeah, probably a little past that central line that they want, right? But still not a bad shot. Good weight. Yeah, good sweep by the boys on the front. Yeah, very good scrub. You'll hear that a lot. Good scrub, good sweep. Right. Always better to be a little light and have your sweepers take it, right? We can't slow a rock down, but we can make it go further if we sweep it, and that's what the sweeping does, right? Lots of theories about sweeping, but the main one to be worried about is if you throw a rocket, I can't put the brakes on, but if you throw it a little slow, I can speed it up a little bit for you. So always better to be a little light than a little heavy. Team Newcomb's lead, Laura McNair with her first rock. There are 15 of you watching it. Good to have you here. We're almost at the midway point. We're after 3 ends. We're just joining us. It's Team Newcomb. They're playing the Red Rocks. They have 5. Team Connolly has the Yellow Rocks. They have 1. It's been a fun game so far. And I love to talk about this game. As anyone who knows me will tell you. So glad that you joined me this evening, wherever you are. I don't think that's quite where Team Newcomb wanted that rock. Comes up a little bit light, I think, there for Lauren. You've seen Pat change turns, right? They're going to throw the out turn now, or the counterclockwise turn.
We need a Carl!
Which is hard for me to remember which one is which. When you learn these out turn and in turn, we've tried to change the turns to clockwise and counterclockwise, which is the right thing to do, but hard to get out of your brain sometimes. Again, we're seeing, so this time, unlike some of the other things, now we're seeing this way on that out turn, right? Took a little more ice again, a little heavy, which means it's not going to curl as much, but not terribly heavy, right? We're just kind of back 8, right? So maybe just a little less ice again on that one, because you can see if the objective was to get it behind that rock in the front, they're still quite a ways away from that. So maybe just take a little bit less ice, but again, you know, they're on the ice and they're making those adjustments. It's easy for me. I'm just watching, right, to say what I think should be happening. But they're in real time, I promise you, they're using every bit of information they have and trying to do the best thing they can and adjust, make all those little adjustments they need to as the game progresses. Oh, thanks, Melissa. Appreciate that. Another high-quality human has joined the chat. No roll means they don't actually want the roll under. He just wants to take it. It's a great shot, and that's an even more impressive shot, I always say, because that's Lauren. She's throwing lead rocks. She's thrown 7 draws, and as a lead, you tend to throw more draws. So on that 8th rock, to ask from a hit that's, you know, it's not a winger, right? It's not totally way out there in the weeds, right, deep in the blue, but it's still very difficult to kind of up your weight if the first, you know, if you're not being asked to throw a hit, and you know you're being asked in the 4th end. So. Impressive shot, not either way you look at it, but even more impressive, I think, when the lead's forced to throw a hit and they really haven't, you know, played one all game. For example, I played 8 ends last night, didn't throw 1 hit playing lead. I threw, you know, a lot, 16 draws. So this one has, I like the, again, you can see that on that, even on the out turn side, really hanging out. And I didn't really see if maybe Mike was a little wide of the broom or just not believing maybe that it's going to curl in as much, but. Again, it's wide out in the open. Yeah, and this time they want to roll. And the reason why they want to roll inside in a way is if you see now, if they were just to hit that on the nose, that means straight back. It would set up a pretty easy double. They'd be right next to each other, and you could kind of bing, bang, boom them pretty easily. So in this case, he's asking Kevin to come in and kind of roll toward the center line, get distance between those 2 red rocks. And if there is a double, it'll be extremely flat, or the angle will be pretty severe, right? So really trying to get as much separation as possible. Really trying to curl. You see it needs to curl. Yeah, that's fine, right? Even getting rid of that rock, right? No harm, no foul. Again, if you're up 4, you know.
You're pretty well on.
Yeah, that one again, you know, we've been talking about that out turn side and how much it's curling. Maybe got a little out, but again, if you add more weight, the thing about curling you need to know is the more weight you throw, the less it's going to curl, right? So even if you're not that far wide, if you throw a lot more weight, it's just not going to come back. It's not really going to, just not going to curl for you like you wanted it to. And that's why you want to be hearing those weight calls so that you know if it's by the guard, this could be real good. Needs to bend. There it goes. Yep, you got it. If it slows down, this is a beauty. Really good. Needs to, now look at it curl now. It may even curl past. Oh no, that's a great shot. Good, Ramsey. Really good shot there by Ramsey.
Why don't we try to hit it, and if we split the guard, it's okay.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah. So this is a great, I love this play. Can't really, I mean, that yellow rock is in a really good spot. Good shot by Ramsey. But there's quite a bit of distance you see between that yellow guard out front and the one in the house. So the the shot they're really trying to make is to get past that guard and take out the yellow. But as you heard Chuck say, the good news is if you're a little narrow and you clip the guard, that's fine. Because if they clip the guard, right, then that yellow will be fully exposed, and then Team Connolly has to make some decisions. And if they decide, no, they can make a better guard, that's not, they could get it a little closer to the house. But, if you don't make a good guard, basically it's a 2 all day because they're going to hit that yellow rock out. So I love this strategy. Lauren Jerry narrowed at it before he can even let go of the rock, which makes me think it's probably narrow. Oh, they're playing that hole. Okay. That was a tough shot. Oh, did he get past? Oh, he got through. What a shot. What a shot by Kevin. That is not an easy shot, friends. That hole looks a lot bigger than it is. It's definitely there. You have to throw the exact right way. Just skinny the one guard, then go to the guard. Excellent shot. Probably the best shot of the game so far. Very difficult hit. Well done, Kevin. Beautiful. You're going to play the draw again. That's the right call. Again, that red is deep, and it's only in the 12 foot. So if you can get this sunk behind that yellow again, come around that yellow again, that's a great shot. Pat's yelling off. He thinks it needs to curl. I think he's right. And let me be very clear, this is my 3rd year curling. I'm not an expert. I'm not going to the Olympics. I do this because I have a hell of a lot of fun doing it. And I think that's why most of us do it here, right? Be an odd way to spend your night if you weren't having a hell of a lot of fun, right? So, these are just my opinions about curling. They're no expert opinions, but, they're what me, a club curler, would tell other club curlers to do. So in that way, I think sometimes it's really important that we have people who are younger in the game or who are doing it for fun or understand that club curling is very different than competitive curling and that your choices you make are going to be different. And so seeing it from that perspective versus what would Kevin Cooley do, or Jennifer Jones, or Rachel Herman, right? That's very, very important. Or Tad Peterson. Shout out to the Americans, right? John Schuster. Jason says shot. Are you drinking, Jason? I mean, it is a part of our game. Quite to what Lauren said, but great shot. It's a steep double. I think the shot is hit and roll in, or try to make the draw. You've got 2 options there. The draw is probably easier than hit. Hit and roll is very difficult, precise shot. It sounds very easy. I just kind of, hit it right there and then roll in. Well, I promise trying it is... The hit and roll and the tap, I think, in terms of club curling, are, I think, the 2 hardest shots. And I played a split last night. I think it's the first time I've ever made one. That's also a difficult shot when you're a club curler. This looks a little bit heavy, unfortunately, for Paul. He's come up just a smidge heavy, and that's going to go right through the back of the house. But, again, not far off. Again, I want to emphasize that, just because that went through the house, and realistically, that shot is not far from being made. It might look like it's a long way from being made, but, a tenth, 0.2 of a second. That's literally what we're talking about in a lot of ways. That hog time we're talking about are, it's really very, the margins are very small in curling. Like I said before we start, at the very beginning of the game, sometimes something that looks like a very big miss is actually very close to a make. It just visually looks like it's much worse than it is. So, curling's tough, and I think a lot of club curlers are way too hard on themselves. A lot of these shots are very difficult. So Red's kind of in control of the game now. That they're going to try to play the same sort of shot, right? Take a look. What does he mean when he says take a look? He means that he thinks the sweepers need to look because he probably is saying to them subtly, maybe it's heavier than you think it is, stop sweeping. But that's the polite way I say it. Take a look, right, is the fancy way of saying, I can't tell, right? The skip's job is not to judge the weight, it's to judge where the rock is going to go or the line, and the sweeper's job is to judge the weight. But it is important if the skip thinks that they have a piece of data that tells them, either because it's not curling or they can just kind of, they can see by the way the rock is coming in that it's too heavy. It's important to give your sweeper some information, say, hey, I trust you, but just take a look. And that way you can take a look. If you think you still need to go, then as a skip, it's whoever the skip is, it's my job to trust your judgment, right? It's a very complicated game. Jason did not take a shot. 13 viewers again, welcome if you're just joining us. We're in the 4th end. We are on Skips Rocks. That's Pat Connolly getting the hat. Currently, Team Connolly does not have the hammer. They're without the hammer. Team Newcomb has the hammer. The score is 5-1 currently for Team Newcomb as we finish up here in the 4th end. Also, unlike the professionals, we don't take a formalized break at the halfway mark, so you're here for the duration, folks. We're about an hour in. We also very rarely play 10-in games in club situations. We play 8. So if you watch the Grand Slam of curling, right, they always play 8 ends, and we're more of an 8-in game. And typically, if this were not the championship final, if we're being honest, a lot of our games go 6 or 7 ends, but that's because they have a very strict time limit. So it's not because even though we're playing slowly, it's just that, you know, our times are pretty tight in terms of getting all 8 ends in. Pat's got another chance here. He's gonna come. He's gonna come to the middle, kind of what Kevin did. He's got to stay off that guard. I think he might just be by. Great shot. If he could. Now it's got to come down though. It's got to slow down. Got to slow down. This could be really good. I think it might have gone just too far. Hard to tell. Oh, just too far. That's a great shot by Pat. Again, we're talking about, right, that's visually very tough, right? If you're sitting in the hack and Pat's trying to make that shot, that red, even though it's way far behind you and it's not really in your way, it optically does not look very great when you're sitting in the hack to try to make that shot. So, but great effort there from Pat, and that's the tough thing, right? You know, line and weight, right? Where's it going to end up and how hard did I throw it? And sometimes, you know, the line is great and the weight's just a little too much, or the weight's perfect, but it just cuts on you a little bit. It might have taken one of those guards. So, very tough shot. So, just a little unfortunate. I mean, and we're talking again. Look where that yellow rock is versus those other 2 red rocks. I mean, we are talking a fraction of a second made the difference there. Chucky cleaned the bottom of his rock. You'll see some people do that. Get the debris off. You'll see some people spin the rock. You'll see some people do both. Everyone kind of has a pre-shot routine. That's kind of like what they do before they release the rock. So I emulate my idol Jennifer Jones, right? I always kind of use my right hand and I kind of like clean it off on my thigh. And that's kind of like the last thing I do. I also adjust my glasses. That's just a thing I've always done. So, but it's important to keep that routine consistent and deliberate and the same every time. It also helps you slow down a lot of people, and I'm guilty of this all the time, right? You get excited, or your heart beats up from sweeping, you get excited and you kind of like blow your pre-shot routine and you speed through it. That's almost guaranteed miss, or guaranteed not the best shot you could have made. So Chucky's going to flip that broom over usually. He's let go of it this time. So now Lauren's trying to curl it, try to get past that red. I think he's going to chip it off, maybe kind of chip and roll. Okay, that's in the way, for sure. I mean, even though it's not much further over than that other rock, it is going to cause a bit of an issue. I think Pat could try the same shot again, even though it's just a little bit further over, that rock is kind of a little more in the way, so. And it's Pat's last shot, and they're without the hammer, right? So currently, if the end ended now, Red would score 3, so Pat needs to find a way to get in there. Now, the good news for Pat, potentially, right, because of where that red rock has stopped, if you could get it in the right spot, it would be hard to raise those reds in a way that would get rid of the yellow. If you put it in the wrong spot, there probably is a way to manipulate those red stones, which are above the T line, into that yellow. So that's why you're seeing, I think, some discussion here. It's really about where can I put this in the end where red can't hit it out. Because if red hits it out, that's probably for 4. And a score of 9-1 is difficult. It's difficult probably to come back from down 8. Not impossible, like I said. You know, I think some people see a big deficit and they think that there's, you know, nothing going on. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Pat makes a lot of shots, friends. Like I told you, Pat is, you know, won the mixed doubles championship with Audra Adams on Monday. So Pat makes a ton of shots. So I think he's got it. Got to believe in it, right? That's the other thing. When you get down a lot and you're facing a lot, maybe in that last round coming up, you know, you got to have that belief. Got to believe that you can make that shot. And thermonuclear. So he's still here. So he's going to throw a pistol. If he said thermonuclear, it means he's going to basically throw the heck out of the rock. I almost said a bad word there. Let it go means curl, probably. That it needs to curl. He did throw that good. Gets past the guard with plenty of space. And that's not. Well, unfortunately, he bumps his own back, and red now sits 3. So, red sits 3. They just really have to. They have to be full, a little better than full 12 to get 4. Interesting choice there to go for the hit. Totally understand why you make that choice. He probably, I think it would be fair to say that any draw he could have possibly made, it would have been tough. It would have been hard maybe to get in a spot where Brad couldn't potentially hit them out. So there weren't a ton of good options for Paton. I think he made a good choice. It just unfortunately didn't quite come up enough for him, and so kind of crashed in some shrapnel in the back. And now, I will say this, we joke about this all the time in the club, even though everyone has to be a little better than 412, this is one of the hardest shots in curling, because theoretically you have basically the whole house to use, but I speak from experience when I say when you've got that much room to work with, you come up light or you go heavy, because it shouldn't be that hard. As you can, the sweepers are on it, so it might be either that he's narrow or heavy. Yep. If you hear Lauren say it needs it, that means they think it's light. So that means they're going to stay on it. They got to get past the guard. They got to get past the guard. They got to stay on that. I don't know if it has enough momentum to get in there or not. They're really, really sweeping it. Oh, again, I told you, it is the oldest room curling. Like I said, just got to be a little better than 412. Three points. That's going to be scored. And that's going to be the final. So Team Collins going to shake after 4. The final score will be Team Newcomb 8. Team Connolly 1. Shout out to Team Newcomb. And that's the team of Chuck Newcomb, Brian Shunko, Kevin Taylor, and Lauren McNary. They are the Thursday Competitive League champions. Shout out to Team Connolly too. They were the 9th seed. They beat some incredible teams to get here to the final. And honestly, don't let the score is no indication of how good those boys played tonight as well. So sometimes the score is not always indicative of the effort the other team put in. Thanks for joining us here tonight at the Cincinnati Curling Club. If you're interested in becoming a member, having learned to curl, joining an instructional league, we start again in October because we're shutting down at the end of this week. You go to CincinnatiCurlingClub.org for more information. My name is Ben. My name still will be, hopefully, Clint Prince. It's been a pleasure joining you this evening, and hopefully we'll see you all in October, and hopefully we'll see some of you on the ice. Have a good night.